All right, welcome into the Rundown with Caleb and Casey here on a Tuesday afternoon, early evening. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. We are moving through the year. Man, the college football season is flying by, Casey Schiessler. Kind of sad, you know. I hate to see that we're already at this point, but it's been a fun year. And the Cardiac Clones. The Cardiac Clones strike on Saturday. My goodness, I really felt it in my heart in that game. Roller coaster of emotions on Saturday. All for the Cyclones to find a way to gut it out and improve to 7-0 on the season. Wow, Saturday was crazy. We'll get to that in a second. We'll talk all things Big 12 as usual. We will do our weekly picks also on a weekly basis. We'll do our 3 for 3, and then we've got a factual 5 for you all today, as the Cyclones do, in fact, have a bye week this week, so we've got no game to preview. Decided to go with the factual 5. Today's factual 5 should be fun. Yeah. I'm excited for this one.
This is a good one.
We're going to talk some coaches that may or may not be sticking around at their current positions for much longer. We'll talk about that, and then we'll call it a show. Casey, how's it going today, my friend?
Good. I think our heart rates have returned to normal. It has been a long weekend. Stress we didn't need to go through that the Cyclones put us through, but we got there nonetheless.
See, there's a reason why we do this on Tuesday and not like an instant reaction immediately following the games on Saturdays, because, you know, if we were to do this post like Iowa back in week 2 or post Saturday, it would be very authentic podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We would have extreme thoughts in multiple different ways.
Right on. All right. Well, let's just dive right in. Iowa State, again, like we mentioned, defeats the Space Unites of Central Florida. Still will never call them UCF.
Nope.
38-35. To improve to 7-0 in the year, Cyclones still remain undefeated. One of what? Or is it 10 teams left? Something like that? Is it less than that?
I think it's just 10 or 11. Okay. I can't remember.
Right around there. The only team to bounce out of that this weekend was Texas. My goodness. What a loss for them.
Terrible game.
Georgia at home. And like we said, roller coaster of a game for the Cyclones. Just a completely illogical victory when you look at it. When you look at the stats and you look at the box score, these are the 3 big ones from me here, okay? Cyclones gave up 9.1 yards per carry. Rocco Becht completes just 43% of his passes and throws 2 pick sixes. Now, I know the second one technically wasn't, but it basically was.
Yeah.
Yes, you call it a pick six. It is what it is, right? It's virtually impossible to find out how many teams have won games before giving that up. Like, you would need crazy stats research guru to go back and look at all that, and even then, like, that would take millions of years. Not that long, but a long time. All that to say, you don't do that and win football games. That is incredibly rare. I'd like to know if there's been a handful of teams in the history of football that have won games doing that. And oh my goodness, the Cyclones found a way. They found a way. Just a gutsy victory. You know, I think that's a Central Florida team where you should beat them by more than that. You should probably put them away earlier in the game. But at this point in the year, you just find a way. And if it says a W in that win-loss column, I'm here for it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're 7-0, 4-0 for the first time ever in conference play, but there's just a lot of question marks. First of all, giving up 9 yards per carry on a team that ran the ball 40 times, that's a big issue. And I think Iowa State has really been strong this season in second-half adjustments. And although on the score, UCF scored 7 in the third quarter, 7 in the fourth, it felt like they still controlled the game entirely. I felt like this defense, they played good. Definitely not their best game by far. Same thing with Rocco.
Yeah.
Played good, but
I would
may
say
have been his worst game.
Yeah, probably the defense is maybe their worst game of the year, honestly. I mean, I don't know. Aside from that first half against Iowa, probably their weakest.
And, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I felt like there were a lot of things that could have changed, or a lot of things that adjustments that could have been made that weren't, that would have made the game less difficult for the Cyclones.
Yeah, right on. And that's where I love this bye week here. I think, like, when you talk about, there's the whole cliche, team of destiny, right? Sometimes you got a season where things just go your way, and that's been the case for Iowa State. You've just found a way to win these games, and Somebody compared it, and I'd like to see if you agree with this here. Somebody compared it to the TCU team in 2022 that made the national championship.
Yeah, I saw that.
I kind of feel like that's a good comparison. And, that's not to say Iowa State's like going to make the national championship. I'm not saying that. But, like,
That's actually entirely what you're saying.
Yes, they are. The way you've won some of these games, against Iowa, against Central Florida, Iowa State, for being a fan as long as I've been, Iowa State has not won these games.
Mm-mm.
Like, they just historically have not, and they found a way to this year. But where was I going with this? I don't even know what the point was I was trying to make, to be honest.
When the ball bounces your way, you got to take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, I was saying, okay, go back to the bye week.
Yeah.
When you talk about, like, team of destiny things, like, when you have a bye week in this spot, again, that just plays in your favor because you've got guys at the linebacker spot that are still banged up. And this is a big week to get healthy. Brazina was out there, but he didn't look 100% at all. Cooper Eagle's been up and down. Jacob Ellis has been a little bit banged up as well. You still had, the Ryland Barnes of the world out there.
Who played really good, though.
He did. He had a great game. He's fun to watch.
Game. Yeah.
The Bo Goodwins of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So for this bye week, for those guys to get healthy is huge. But, yes, I agree with you. It was uninspiring from the defensive side of the football at times. And you just hope that if you can get a couple of those linebackers back to full force, they should be fine this point forward. And I'll give credit to UCF, too. That's a really, really good rushing attack team.
Mm-hmm.
They pound the rock really well. R.G. Harvey is one of the best running backs I think I've seen in college football this year. And then this Ja'Cory Brown, I thought he was good. I think he's the better option than KJ Jefferson at this point.
Definitely. He's dynamic threat. 8 for 20
he didn't
on
throw the ball.
62 yards. All right, come on. We got to adjust to that. And he probably threw, 10 of those in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, when they were trying to play catch up.
Yeah. He threw at least 5 or 6, so he's 7 for about 14 going into the fourth quarter. You just got to adjust to that. And he didn't look bad passing. It just clearly wasn't their game plan. They clearly were going to beat us on the ground with 2 different guys, and they did that every single snap. They beat us off the line. They held blocks long enough for Brown to scramble out and get yards. He wasn't looking to throw when he left the pocket. He was looking, where can I find a gap so I can get 4 or 5 yards on this run, or I can break a first down. And if there's a guy open downfield when I start running, I'm going to hit that guy. And he did a really good job.
Yeah, he did. And I was surprised, to be honest. I don't think I said it last week on the pod, but this was, in my opinion, this was the most comfortable I was going into a game, probably going back to that Arkansas State game.
Yeah.
I think I felt better about this one than even against Houston back there in that late September game.
Definitely.
And it ended up being the closest, really of the season aside from that Iowa game. And the other thing that surprised me too is the reason why I felt so comfortable is not because I thought UCF had a lack of talent, because I don't think they do. I think that showed they have talented guys out there, and they do have one of, if not the biggest NIL base in the Big 12. I mean, they've got money down there. They got deep pockets in Orlando, so they've got players. But with all these guys transferring out, it was has Gus Malzahn lost the locker room? Did these guys even care anymore? They had some pretty uninspiring losses, and man, I'll give them credit. They showed up, and they took Iowa State right down to the wire, and it required good segue here. It required a Rocco Becht hero ball performance, especially in that fourth quarter. Rocco Becht, I've heard a lot of people say it. I think it's a good way of putting it. His best and his worst game of his Iowa State career.
Definitely.
Right? I think it's both.
I mean, that interception, it looked just like the interception to seal the deal against Iowa last year, that pick six, the first one he threw. The one where the corner was already covering him, he just turned, didn't even think, and zipped it right to the corner. Rocco was uninspiring at times, and at other times he put the team on the back when he needed to. That late game drive was fantastic, and I mean, that's something we'll never forget.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And he did it with his feet. It was entirely with his feet. I mean, 20 carries for 97 yards. Safe to say, Iowa State's offensive line played probably their worst game of the year. Rocco had to improv a lot, but my goodness, I mean, he found a way, and that's gutsy. That's a gutsy thing to do, and like I said earlier, he completes 43% of his passes, which is not a good stat line. 2 picks, 2 pick sixes. And, gosh, that second one was just so fluky. I mean, unbelievable. I could not believe.
Bad pass, but worse outcome.
Yeah. It was just like, right, he didn't lead Jalen Noel well. It was just like the entire stadium fell dead the moment it bounced out of Jalen Noel's hands on the ground and went into the UCF players' hands. That's like something that only happens against Iowa. It only does, but it happened on Saturday. But all that to say, Rocco Becht willed this team to a victory there at the end. And that final drive was so much fun to watch. He gets the touchdown and the 2-point conversion all on his feet.
Yeah, definitely. I will say, though, in terms of offensive line, I don't know about worst game, but that second half was abysmal at times. I think the first half we were really good. We got Hansen going early.
That's true. That's a good point.
We got Sama in the screen game as well. And I was kind of looking hopeful. Hansen probably had, 70-ish yards at half.
Yes, I think you're about right.
Because he broke at least
91.
Yeah, he broke at least one big one. Only 9 carries too. And I thought Sama was looking good there for a little bit. Jackson, we just couldn't get going. And then we hit the second half and run game just stopped.
Yeah.
It was dead in its track. So then we lean on the rushing. I mean, we even tried to give Noel a carry. I didn't like that in that situation. I don't mind giving it to Noel with how quick he is, but I think in that situation it was a little bit rough. And then Rocco's got to scramble out, and we're not able to buy time for our receivers and get good throws downfield in the second half. Offensive line fell apart. But I think this defensive line for UCF was a lot better than we gave them credit for at the beginning.
They were good up front on both sides.
Some real big guys, too. They had some marshmallows on that line.
They had some big fellas.
That number 2.
Yeah. When you're a defensive tackle and you're number 2, you better be
Lee Hunter,
a massive human being.
6'4", 320.
Yeah. You better be a behemoth.
And
if
he
you're gonna
looked
wear the number 2.
all of that.
Yep, all that and more. But no, I'm glad you mentioned Abu Sama. I want to give him a lot of credit. He's kind of been buried by a lot of people the last few weeks, and he's been, he kind of took that third place role behind Carson Hansen and Jalen Jackson in this, 3-headed running back monster that we've kind of seen this year. But he had some big plays in that game. His stats don't scream anything crazy, 10 for 55 on the ground, and then 2 grabs for 34 yards. But there was that one play in particular that led to the 4th touchdown for Iowa State that would have tied it up had the PAT not been blocked. You know what I'm talking about on that drive when Rocco scrambled and then found him deep down the field. That was a huge play.
Yeah.
And, for Abu to stay the course and to have a game like that, especially when Carson Hansen goes down too, which sounds like he should be okay. I think he's in a better spot than Bramer. Bramer might miss a bit.
Bramer's going to miss a bit.
Yeah. Hopefully Bramer can get back at some point this year. He was in crutches.
Yeah, post-game.
Yeah, yep. Which, you actually mentioned that after the game. My dad had said it as well in the stands, but I didn't ever see him go off the field.
I didn't ever see him.
Yeah.
I didn't ever realize it, and I think it was just, he had been such a non-factor this season.
Yeah,
kind of to
almost
points.
Don't even realize.
Yeah, because we hadn't leaned on him like I think we did at the beginning of last season. If he goes out at some point last season, because he's getting 5-6 targets. But this year, he's getting them sparingly. But when he does get them, he makes a play happen. And I think we were just so caught up in the moment, the momentum and everything, we didn't notice.
And you had Steve O'Klotz back, and I think he was back against West Virginia last week,
yeah,
which is huge to have him back. And Gabe Burkle's been good at tight end too. He's had a good season, solid. Been really good in the run blocking game. If you watch him out there, next game against Texas Tech, look for I think he's number 84 out there. He's been good. But
84, 82.
Yeah, I think 82 might be Tyler Moore, who's also been good at times. Really good. Yep.
We got a deep tight end room and young. We get everyone but Steve-O back.
I think you're right. Yep. But Carson Hansen, like you mentioned, I think he should be okay, which is good. He missed a good chunk, most of the fourth quarter, I think.
Yeah, I think he missed it all.
If he can get healthy this bye week, get back and get those linebackers healthy too, that will be huge across the board. But overall, Casey, I think we pretty much hit on everything. Good conversation surrounding that game. The last thing I wanted to touch on was that atmosphere there.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, Mr. Brightside playing, the student section was hopping.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
If you look back on the broadcast, the camera was legitimately shaking when that Rocco back touchdown and 2-point conversion. The place was just, man, it was crazy.
It popped. There's a lot of loud moments in Jack Trice Stadium, but there are a few where the place just pops and, like you said, it shakes, and you really felt that there. And then just kind of that celebration. you go from the touchdown to the 2-point conversion, and then the Jontez Williams pick to seal the deal, and the whole place was just erupting. That was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a core for us. That's a core college memory.
Definitely. And there was a lot of people that had already left too.
I know.
So we weren't at full strength. I mean, I kind of get it though. Like when UCF gets the ball back and there's 2:10, and we hold them to a 10-second drive.
Right.
Get the ball back, and I mean, no one expected us to march downfield like we did there. That was, I mean, ESPN had UCF at a 99.9% chance to win when they got the ball back.
Do you ever see the one guy on Twitter? I think it's Matt Nilsson is his name. He does like the win probability chart from ESPN for every game, and like gives a little caption to each kind of like area of like concavity on the chart, if that makes sense. I always find that funny. He'll like describe what our emotions are at that specific point, and it's always funny to look at because it's very relatable. But yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much hit on everything. It's like it's one of those games where Iowa State just did not show up in so many facets, but you feel so relieved at the fact that they found a way to win that game, and just confident in this team's ability to win those games down the stretch, because they will find themselves in more games like that later on this year. That will not be the last one. If this team's going to compete for a Big 12 championship and maybe a spot in the playoff, they're going to find themselves in spots like that where you got to, be gutsy and find a way to grit it out and get the win. So bye week this week. Let's get healthy and then bring Texas Tech to town the following week.
Yeah, and they weren't the only Big 12 championship team that really had to pull out a major victory.
It's a great segue.
Thank
That's
you.
a really good segue.
I had that one planned in my head when we
give you a fist bump
when we started talking.
That was like insane podcasting right there.
You couldn't see it on camera, but I was like smiling.
I was wondering what you're smiling about. I was like, what's brother going to talk about here? But that was elite. So Casey, as he just wonderfully did, is going to transition us into the Big 12 segment. Let's talk about the Big 12 here. We'll start with BYU Okie State because you mentioned it. Really could not have been a more similar result in comparison to that Iowa State game.
Yeah, the only difference was BYU spent most of the game ahead until that last minute. Okie State also 99.9% chance to win with 11 seconds to go in the fourth. I mean, that game was just, sometimes you need miracles to happen to go your way, and BYU got it done.
Yeah, they certainly did. And you look at the box score too, and Okie State essentially went with the same strategy that UCF used against Iowa State on Saturday, and that's just run the ball up the gut. Right? You look at the box score, and they finally got Ollie Gordon going. If you're an Okie State fan, that's good to see. It might be too little, too late at this point. If you were hoping for a Big 12 championship before the season, at this point, that's not going to happen. But they get him going. Is it Garrett Rangel here? He had himself a good game on the ground, but Oklahoma State just does not have guys that can throw the football right now.
Yeah,
they're very Iowa-esque offensively, and they found a way to do it on the ground. But yeah, I mean, BYU edges it out at home again, like we talked about. Exact same score, 38-35. Like you said, they were up most of the game. But, yeah, I mean, it really feels like this Big 12 race, and we'll get to that in a second. I want to run through the scores quick, but it's kind of, Iowa State, BYU, and you throw Kansas State in there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe also, and this could be, I don't know, it could be fluky, but you might have to throw Cincinnati kind of in that Tier 2 situation right now, that Tier 2 spot, because they beat Arizona this weekend. Now, Arizona State was without Sam Leavitt, and had the pride of Nebraska, Jeff Sims, playing quarterback. And he didn't have any interceptions. He might have had fumbles that I didn't see. But Cincinnati, that's a quality win against an Arizona State team that's playing well. And they have found themselves right now quietly in this Big 12 race. Yeah,
I mean, if anyone slips up, it's them and Texas Tech vying for that other spot. K-State, I mean, if you think about it, K-State's third right now, and if K-State loses a game, all three of those teams are tied for that third spot. So it's still a tough stretch for both BYU and Iowa State going forward. So anyone slips up, like we say every year, the Big 12 is anyone's game. And it's truly turning out to be that you got about, you can even throw Colorado in there. And there's 1, 2, 3 teams with 2 losses, four teams with 2 losses and a team with 1 loss. So if Iowa State, now knock on wood, of course, if Iowa State or BYU slip up and they just fall off at the end of the season, there are other teams that are still in this and that are still vying for a playoff spot.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, talking about Cincinnati, you look at their upcoming schedule, and it is tough. They go to Colorado this week. They'll host West Virginia, and then they go back-to-back at Iowa State, at Kansas State. That's a tough stretch. Finish it off with TCU at home. But I was kind of having this conversation this weekend with some people, and it might have been with you too, but it's like I feel like at this point in the year, looking at schedules, like remaining schedules, and trying to, figure out strength of schedule and how that compares between teams is kind of pointless because how much do perceptions change from a week-to-week basis?
Yeah.
Like, just this past week, we thought, Texas is probably, like, the easy number 1 in the country right now, right?
Yeah.
It was like, this team is in the driver's seat. They are the best team nationally. I don't think it's any discussion. And now, they lose to Georgia at home, and a really bad performance, honestly, very uninspiring. And it's like, they are clearly not the number 1 team. And it's like, it just changes on a week-to-week basis, and that holds true in no place more so than the Big 12. So it's like looking at upcoming schedules to me doesn't really do that much anymore because how good is BYU? How much better are they than, Arizona State, than Colorado, right? They almost lost to Okie State. We almost lost to Central Florida. How much better are these teams than others? So It's a wild conference. I think we forecasted this. It's been like this all year long, but yeah, it's crazy stuff. Kansas gets back on track, Casey. The Jayhawks, are they back?
1-3 is a rough time to start coming back, but it's better late than I mean, to be fair, if Iowa State loses out, if BYU loses out, if Kansas State loses the Sunflower next week and Kansas wins out, they're 1 game away from the Big 12 championship. That's all I'm saying. Maybe we're writing teams off too early. Who knows? But it was a really good performance. It was what it should have been all year.
Was that Jalen Daniels' first game of the year without a pick? I'm seeing he had 3 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah, that would have been
maybe aside from game 1.
Outside of Lindenwood. Yeah.
Lindenwood.
Known
good for the Jayhawks.
Powerhouse.
Yeah, that's an elite basketball matchup from this past weekend, Kansas and Houston.
Yep.
Colorado decimates Arizona at Arizona.
Man, Colorado's good. Who could have ever predicted that?
This guy over here, he's kind of like set up the pedestal for me to put him up there. Arizona too. Gosh,
rough.
It's been bad. 3 losses in a row. They look bad right now. They're not even keeping it competitive either.
No, and it's tough because you got. I think Fafita's fallen short of expectations, but you probably have the number 1 or 2 wide receiver in college football over there.
Right.
I think it's a debate between McMillan and Burden. But we don't really know what McMillan can be in this Big 12 because he's not getting the opportunities to shine like I think he really should.
Without a doubt. Upset of the weekend, Baylor over Texas Tech in Lubbock. And not only was it an upset, Baylor essentially boat raced Texas Tech, put up 59 points, which is not entirely surprising considering how bad this Texas Tech defense has been all year. Like, for them to win games, you got to win in a track meet, right? I mean, they beat Abilene Christian 52-51 at the beginning of the year. We've said all year long, this is, they're reverting back to the Michael Leach, Cliff Kingsbury days. But boy, I mean, that's a bad loss at home against a Baylor team that has been reeling. And on the flip side, Dave Aranda keeps his job for another day.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's their first conference loss, too. You got to think about it that way.
Right.
They were currently sitting right up with us and BYU quietly, I will say at that. And then you let Baylor come into your place. And not a good Baylor team either. Robertson did get the start again, so maybe that had an impact. But you just can't let Baylor put up 60 points.
They made him look like John Elway out there. 274, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Jeez. More than looked good, though. 33 for 49. 286 and 3.
Yeah, not a bad day.
I mean,
offensively, they'll be there all year long, right?
It's Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to put up numbers. You just got to put up, like.
More.
Yeah, that's really, as cliche as it is.
Just score more points. It's as simple as that. I mean, that's the name of the game, and nobody does that more so than Texas Tech.
And then on the flip side of it, we had 20 points between 2 teams.
Goodness. Yes, TCU, Utah. Also, I mean, you could look at it and say it's an upset, but at this point in time, I think it's just sell Utah. I mean, maybe it would have been better to sell them earlier, if we're talking stocks, but this team is bad right now. 7 points. It feels to me like kind of the Iowa of last year where your defense is good. It's going to keep you in games, but,
you're missing a quarterback.
They've had injuries in the receiving game, injuries all over the offense, and they just can't move the football right now. And how about them Horned Frogs, Casey? They're still staying alive.
They're hanging around.
Technically, they're tied for 7th right now with 2 other teams, Arizona State and West Virginia. So they're not out of contention.
They got a chance to be tied for like 3rd or 4th, too, next week if craziness ensues. But
yeah,
here we are.
Know. It's kind of like our fantasy football league that we're in, Casey, with the league median where, things can fluctuate so much on a week-to-week basis. And then Kansas State over West Virginia and Morgantown, the only other game in the Big 12 from this past weekend. K-State rolls. I was kind of surprised. I mean, West Virginia, and we're going to talk about coaches on the hot seat later on, and I have a feeling that a certain Mountaineer coach could potentially be in that conversation. But if you're West Virginia, going into last weekend, you were 3-2 in the year, undefeated in Big 12 play. You finally felt like you had your footing, right? And then you bring 2 good teams to town for home games 2 weeks in a row at night, right? So, Milan Pusker Stadium bumping. You've got, night games are always crazy. You get both games at home, right? And they really went out and just kind of slept through both of those and didn't put up, against Iowa State, put up a little bit of a fight, but really, they lost by double digits in both and really looked bad this weekend against K-State.
Yeah, we thought this team was way better.
Oh yeah,
than they were.
We both did.
We kind of hyped them up, and we've been waiting for it. And they've shown flashes of it. We'll give them that. They've shown flashes of what they could be, but just not anything like fantastic. And then they have a big lapse like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look ahead to this week really quickly. So we're picking Kansas K-State. Oh, we got a baseball game on the picks this week, huh? I suppose that makes sense.
I guess the series.
It is the World Series.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk about that and maybe do some picks. So I'm seeing 2 Big 12 games on the slate for picks. We'll skip those here. There's really not much else Big 12-wise this week that is super appealing. I think the BYU at UCF game is a little bit interesting. And honestly, for us as Iowa State fans, I think every BYU game at this point going forward is a big one, right? Because with Iowa State not playing BYU, I think you want BYU to lose.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any argument there. I saw somebody saying, like, oh, you want to have an undefeated Big 12 championship because then you could have the potential of having an at-large. But I think at this point, if you're Iowa State, you just want the best chance at getting in the Big 12 championship first and foremost. And if that means, BYU's got to lose, then so be it.
Yeah.
So that's a big game for us there. But really nothing else, and I guess we'll talk about that one a little bit with the picks, but nothing else that really stands out to me on this week's slate unless you got anything.
No, not really.
Okay. I do want to talk really quickly before we head into the picks about the Big 12 standings right now. So we've kind of talked about it a little bit going through last week's slate, but again, BYU, Iowa State tied for first right now, both 4-0 in the Big 12. K-State, Cincinnati, Colorado all tied for second. Now, technically, K-State has that tiebreaker over Colorado, and I guess Texas Tech is also in that 4-way tie for second place. But yeah, it's a very it's really still anybody's ball game right now. I would say the top 3 would be BYU, Iowa State, and I'd throw K-State in there too because I think they're playing better ball. I think that BYU loss is still kind of fluky. Like, you look at the box score, it was a lot of turnovers from Avery Johnson. I think he's playing better now. I still am not an Avery Johnson fan at all.
No.
Big-time Avery Johnson hater.
Will never be.
No, absolutely not. But he is playing better. They're playing better. I think they're still one of the best teams in the league. I do have the updated Big 12 odds from FanDuel pulled up here. I want to see – we're going to play a game. We're going to see how long you can go guessing – the Big 12 odds correctly in order from first to last. That sound good?
Yeah.
Via FanDuel. So I'm going to let you go. Who do you think is currently in first in terms of the odds to win the Big 12?
They jumped BYU over Iowa State this week.
They actually did not.
Really? So that's then they jumped them back because BYU was ahead of us
I think you're
last
right,
I
yeah.
looked. So it's Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State.
Actually, FanDuel goes Iowa State, Kansas State, BYU. So Iowa State plus 160, then K-State plus 230, and then BYU actually down there at plus 380. So, and this
Strength of schedule, I guess.
This does prove our point because afterwards, and I'll let you guess who it is here, but it's plus 1,200 following BYU. So there's a massive gap. Vegas thinks there's a massive gap in between the top three and the rest of the crew, which I think makes a lot of sense. We just got done talking about that. But who do you think is number 4?
Number 4. I just don't like any of these teams. Give me Colorado.
It is Colorado. Colorado
Yep.
Buffaloes, number 5.
Cincinnati.
Texas Tech at 5. Cincinnati's at 6.
Yeah, so I flipped them. I would have had them.
And they're all close. So it's Colorado plus 1,200, Texas Tech plus 1,600, and Cincinnati right behind them at plus 1,700. So they're close. They're close. And then another big gap, if you want to guess who it is.
Arizona State.
It's actually TCU. And then there's a massive – Casey's saying I like the guys over at FanDuel. There's a massive gap in between TCU and Arizona State.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I guess
it goes
Arizona State
3,000 to 7,500. Yep. And then you've got West Virginia, Utah, UCF, Arizona, Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Houston.
All vying for like 40 grand to make
Okie State and
10
Houston are both
cents into maybe $1 million.
plus 50,000 for Okie State and Houston at this point.
Jeez.
But yeah, so I think that kind of
Worth putting a quarter on them, just see what happens.
Why not, dude? Again, proves our point that you kind of have that top 3 right now and then the rest of the crew. But it is still close. I mean, one loss from those top dogs can let anybody else in. Let's pick some games, shall we?
Let's do it. A bit more on the segment this week. Do we want to start with the baseball one?
Sure, let's do that.
It's unique.
What are our records right now overall?
I went 0-3 last week. I think it's the first week ever we've had an offer, but I'm going to chalk it up to only being 3 games.
3 games is tough, yeah.
Caleb, 24-26, just under 500. I fall to 21-29. So last week was tough for me. You picked Tennessee and Illinois,
2-1
right?
then, right?
Yeah, and then we both picked
one.
Texas. We live and we learn. We should never doubt Georgia.
Yeah, Illinois wearing those blasts from the past, leather, essentially leather helmets. Now they were real helmets, but painted leather. Those were.
You can buy it, or you could. They sold out like instantly, and they were like $2,000.
I thought they were ugly at first, but the more I looked at them, I was like, okay, this is cool.
They
it's
were
a
unique.
cool tradition.
And they were done by someone from Nebraska.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least the artists who like painted, and they were all hand painted.
Those Nebraska Cornhuskers can paint, but they can't play football, especially against Indiana.
No, they sure can't.
Go ahead.
Dodgers, Yankees, best of 7 World Series, the 2 juggernauts of the baseball world are going at it.
Yeah. We're just picking the winner of the series, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Yankees. I'm going to take the Yankees. I think that this franchise knows what's on the line this year. First appearance since 2008, which they won that year, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a long 16 years for the New York Yankees. That's a long time. And this is a franchise, a fan base, a program that understands that they should be winning a lot more than that and winning World Series a lot more than that. And they're back. They know what's on the line. The Dodgers have been here, but I think this Yankees team is so loaded. And I think Aaron Judge is, you started to see, because those allegations, those postseason Aaron Judge allegations were certainly there for a while, even against the Royals in the ALDS. ALCS, though, he started to turn the corner. I think he's in for a big performance in the World Series this year. And, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, just up and down, Gary Sanchez up and down the board. They got good pitching. I think this is going to be a really fun World Series. I think it's going to be a lot better than last year's. Last year you had 2 kind of no-namers. I'll go the Yankees, though.
Yeah, that is – Sanchez is on Milwaukee.
Oh, shoot. Why did I say Gary Sanchez? Who was I thinking of?
I'm blanking on his name right now.
Who's their catcher now?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I know this.
Taryn Bates is listening, cringing right now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Taryn. I'm, like, picturing him. It's one of those where you can, like, picture them in your head, but you can't say the name.
Oh, well.
I'm going to pick the Yankees as well, and I'm going to be a completely biased pick here for going out to a Yankees game.
Right on.
Because we sure can do that. But I like this team. I think this is going to be one of the more electric World Series to watch. The amount of talent, I can't even tell you the last time we had star-studded lineups like this vying for a World Series. I think it's great for the game of baseball and what they need right now. They need star power out there. They need to market the game. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. You have two of the top three teams perennially, going at it for the World Series. Two of the biggest teams in all of sports, arguably, or at least biggest brands in all of sports going for it. And you have Shohei Ohtani and the entire Japan influence that's going on with that. There's a lot of Latin American players on both sides as well. I think this is the World Series that MLB needs, and they need to take advantage of it and do it right. Nonetheless, I am taking the Yankees as well.
Yeah, I mean, so the highest rated World Series of all time, TV-wise, was in 1978 between the Yankees and Dodgers.
Oh, wow.
Averaged 44.28 million viewers per game. I don't think this gets to that because you saw with the Cubs in 2016, that was like, that was an insane World Series with the Cubs finally being back and all the storylines.
Yeah.
That only averaged 22.8. I think it tops that. I don't think it gets to 1978's numbers. That's a lot of people.
This one, though, you have to throw in the international market with it. That entire Shohei market that they're really trying to take advantage of, which, I mean, makes sense. You're going to make millions off of this in marketing. I think the international market will be more attracted to this game because of the brands involved compared to, like, you think Chicago Cubs, I mean, that's not something that I think someone from, Germany or England or Japan would go, oh, I want to tune into that. I mean, obviously now the Cubs went out and picked up Seiya Suzuki, so that checks out. But, I mean, Shohei Ohtani and just the influence he brings. And now you're adding Aaron Judge, and I think this one, it may not break it, but I think if any we're going to get close, it was this one.
For sure. It'll be this one without a doubt. It could get close. Yeah, it'll be the highest rated, at least in the last probably 15, 20 years, without a doubt. Should be fun, though.
Yeah. How about a Friday night football to kick us off? It is the number 17 Boise State Broncos heading to UNLV in what may turn out to be the most electric game. Over-under is currently set at 65.5, and that might be cutting it short, honestly.
And how about this, too? This has major college football playoff implications.
This does.
Now, these two teams are still battling the top dogs, Army and Navy, in the G5. Okay, so they're preying on the downfall of the blue bloods of the Group of Five. Our two teams, Army and Navy. But it does have playoff implications and certainly Mountain West implications as well. I love this game. This is great. I am going to Boise State favored by 3.5 here is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I got them at 3.
Sure, I think that's probably about right. I'm going to take the Broncos here. Admittedly, I don't know too much about either of these two teams, but I do know that Boise State has a guy by the name of Ashton Genty who is doing something that running backs have seldom done in the history of college football, and I'm going to take them because of that.
Yeah, I think this is probably going to be the best matchup of the week if you like high-scoring football. If you like defense, don't tune into this game. There's no need to. You're going to watch a running back get 10 yards a carry and a quarterback throw for 200 and scramble for 80 yards. But this game's going to be super fun. I cannot wait to watch. And I think with it being so high-scoring, it does give UNLV the chance. And I think it was a fun one to talk about. That's why I threw it on here. But I'm still going to give the edge to Boise State at the end of the day. Then we will go
Look at us. We've picked the same game both ways so far.
Yeah. We will go to one of 5 ranked versus ranked matchups. We will only be picking 2 of them. Sorry, 2. But speaking of blue bloods, Notre Dame goes to Navy in a ranked matchup, Caleb.
Some are calling this the Casey Schieschler game. Mm-hmm. Who does he cheer for?
He cheers for the team wearing blue and gold.
Good old football.
Yeah. I hope both teams have fun.
I like that. Yeah, right. Shout out Kristen Polking. You could get that shirt from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big game for Notre Dame. If you lose this one, I think the playoff chances really. Freeman too. Yeah, playoff chances are probably gone, and then Marcus Freeman starts to really get questioned after that loss to Northern Illinois. And then for Navy too. I mean, what a massive opportunity.
If Navy wins this, they got to be a top 15 team.
I think so
right?
too,
Undefeated.
without a doubt.
You now have a quality win against a blue blood opponent at home. I mean,
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think Navy puts up a good test. I do. I just think this Notre Dame team is all around better across the board. And Navy's able to do what they do against the opponents they play, right? Same with Army. It's both of those teams, right? They run the football at a very high clip because they get to play teams that just admittedly aren't as talented. But Notre Dame, I think, has the ability to stop the run more so than anybody else they've played.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And because of that, I think they get the win in enemy territory.
Yeah.
This was the Ireland game last year, right?
Yeah. Or 2 years ago, was it?
I'm not sure.
Notre Dame unveiled like the white and gold unis with like the
could've been a
Irish,
couple
which
years
were
ago.
awesome. I'm gonna go Notre Dame as well. I love this Navy team. I love what the military schools are doing right now. I think this is fantastic for college football and like the fan base just to see stuff like this. Notre Dame's just so talented. I think kind of the thing with Navy and Army is they've been able to play bully ball all season. They've been able to push you around. I saw something that was like the squat on the combined or the average squat between all players on the field when Army ran in like a split T formation, a trap play for 70 yards. The average squat was 525 on the field, which is saying something. They've been playing bully ball all season, and they've got some electric guys able to make it happen and read the field well. But you're going up against five-star talent now. You're going up against guys that will be playing this game much longer into the future, and it's going to get very difficult. I think the place will be rocking. The Navy Stadium will be going crazy. This is a game that will definitely be tuned in to. But I'm going to pick Notre Dame.
Okay. We have yet to split a pick,
I
Casey.
know, and I don't like that for me. You got to make a comeback somehow, but you got to find a way to take wins.
Yes, I mean, tying is better than continuing to be separated more and more in terms of the records, right? So
yeah.
Just hang around.
We'll go over to the Big 12, and what will turn out to be an interesting matchup. Number 11, BYU, is a 1.5-point dog heading into the Citronaut Stadium of Disney U.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game I'm watching this week on the couch about 36 hours after getting my wisdom teeth out on Friday. Whew.
Best of luck.
Yes, which, by the way, the pod may or may not happen next week, TBD.
Yeah.
Follow us on the Twitter at @therundown_pod for all the updates on that. We'll let you guys know
You'll
there
be gnawing
officially.
on some ice cream.
Right on. And watching, yes, the Citronauts versus the BYU Cougars. I know you've got the Kansas K-State game, which, yeah, that one probably for you is more interesting. But I think for me it's this one. This is what I'm wanting to watch. And
good news. You can watch them both, Caleb.
I sure can. Good point. I'm going to take UCF here. I am going to take UCF in the home upset. This may just be kind of a, college football is a weird sport. We saw UCF get close last week. Let's just kind of ride that and see what happens. And that's me this week for no reason other than the fact that I just think BYU, they're a good team. I believe in what they're doing and what what's his name?
Gus Malzahn?
No, BYU head coach.
I can't even tell you.
I don't even know either. But on the hot seat last year, and he has really rallied. Kalani Sitake, right?
Yeah.
Really rallied the troops. I believe what he's doing, but I think UCF gets the home victory here. I think they just have found a bit more of an identity with Ja'Cory Brown at quarterback, and they're going to find a way.
Yeah, no, I like this game. I think it's going to be very interesting. UCF being a 1.5 favorite against a top 12 team is interesting. I think BYU gets it done in this game. Two reasons why. I think they got their reality check last week. They've figured out what is going wrong, just like the Cyclones. They got their reality check. They got curb stomped a little bit, and they came away with a win. And you're allowed to be able to reset now and be like, all right, I think we're good to go. And second, you've now seen Ja'Cory Brown play a football game. Iowa State did not have much to go into, true freshman. We didn't know what they were going to do. Now you've seen him play football. You see how they're going to utilize him. You've seen kind of when they come out in certain formation and looks what they're going to do. Granted, you don't have a big set to go off of, but with what you do know, I think you can game plan around him and force him to pass the ball, run stints and stuff like that, really get your linebackers involved with the game. I think BYU, if they come away with this victory, I think they are far and away looking as a very tough challenger to the Cyclones.
Right on.
And then the other ranked matchup, we head down to the SEC, and two teams that don't ride them out, they're still in playoff contention. Number 8 LSU, number 14 Texas A&M.
Yeah, man, LSU kind of putting itself through the ringer right now. A lot of tough tests. Beat Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. Went to Arkansas last week. Definitely felt like a trap game. Arkansas is never an easy place to play. That's a team that's been better this year. They were 4-2 going into last week. I kind of thought that was trouble for LSU, and they went in there and controlled the game, 134-10.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the Tigers here. I think this team's playing really good football right now. I think Garrett Nussmeier's been one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He had a bit of a tough start to the season, but he's really playing good football right now. Caden Durham at running back, 3 touchdowns last weekend. I think this is a really good game, and you can never count out what happens at Kyle Field, the home of the 12th man, right? Mm-hmm. They will bring it on Saturday. That's going to be an elite environment. I'm going to take, though, I think this is a Brian Kelly prove-it spot yet again, and I think this LSU team is built to win it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that both these teams are undefeated in conference play right now, and this game has huge implications.
It is
quiet. A&M is 4-0, and I mean, they really haven't looked back since that Notre Dame loss, and that's an out-of-conference loss, so that doesn't have a whole lot of effect on making the playoffs when you're an SEC team. This team looks really good. Granted, they just kind of scaled by Mississippi State, who may be the worst team in Power 5 or Power 4 right now, or at least the most disappointing. Weigman's looks really good. And like you said, it's at Kyle Field, home of the 12th man. I think this A&M team is also trending up. Kind of the same reasons you're talking about LSU, I think, can be applied to A&M as well. And in what may be the biggest game of the week for sure. And we're going to look back on this. I think right now it's not really setting in, but once we start realizing kind of how this 12-team playoff works and we come December, we're looking back at this game like, wow, we kind of undervalued this for what it was at first. But not us, of course, because we know what's going on. But I'm going to take A&M. And
all right, start to split a little bit here.
The first of 2 in-state rivalries to finish it off. We're going to go Michigan State, and just 2 abysmal, disappointing. I won't say Michigan State hasn't been that disappointing. We kind of knew they were going to be bad, but I don't think we knew they were going to be this bad.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And honestly, if you look at their schedule, their 3 losses, they really went through Murderer's Row, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Went to Boston College. That's a good Boston College team. Now they've lost 2 straight now, and it's starting to look like okay, because that Florida State win doesn't mean much anymore. Yeah. But I think that's still one of the better teams in the ACC.
You played Boston College when they were hot.
Yes, and you played them close at their place. That's not a bad loss.
Yeah.
And then you went back-to-back against Ohio State and Oregon, and it's like, what are you supposed to do there, right? Yeah. It's just tough. And they got killed in both, but bounced back after a bye at home this week against Iowa and took care of business. And I was honestly surprised. Iowa's not very good this year. It's about time.
Yeah.
And I think they are starting to see the ramifications of being in this new Big Ten, where they might be stuck for a long time in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Which I have nothing wrong with, for the record.
Best of luck.
Yes, best of luck, Hawkeyes. Hope you guys enjoy making all that money and just sitting right there with Illinois and Wisconsin right in the middle.
Not even Illinois' top 25 team.
That's
Indiana's
a
good football team, too.
I should say sitting down there with Purdue, Northwestern, UCLA.
True. Nebraska
as well, yes. Look at us.
We're hitting all of our
such
spots.
Haters. Hate watching this weekend was elite, dude.
It was.
That was so good. Nebraska, Iowa, who else?
Kansas State.
Missouri almost lost. Yeah. K-State. All this to say, though, this is still at the Big House. This is still at Michigan Stadium, and you can never discredit that. But Michigan has just been bad, and they lost at Illinois 21-7 this last weekend. This is an offense that cannot move the football right now. Are they on quarterback number 3 this year, or did Tuttle start the season?
It was Orgy, and then it was Warren.
Yeah, Warren. Okay, so this is Tuttle's quarterback 3.
But I thought they went back to Orgy.
Tuttle played the entire game this weekend, it looks like.
Yeah, but I think they announced
are they
going to
have him play? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not certain on that, but I thought I saw something on it.
I am. Oh gosh, I don't. I'll take. I'll take Michigan State with the road victory here. Go with my gut. That's probably the wrong decision. I think a team like Michigan, you bounce back eventually at home. But I'll just stay with Michigan State. Why not?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Michigan State as well. I think Jonathan Smith kind of came into this season. Like, there's a lot of hopes for the future. But at this time right now, you don't expect to go out there and be fantastic. You're kind of just coasting by in recruiting and bringing people in this year for next year. And I think he's a fantastic coach. I think this team's going to be legitimate next year. Aiden Childs has not been fantastic. 6-9 is not a good ratio. I don't know if he knows that yet, but he should learn. He's a freshman. Maybe he hasn't gotten that far in a statistics class, but that probability and that ratio.
Is it a binomial distribution? Does it meet the 3 requirements?
I don't think so, but I also probably couldn't tell you with any more confidence than he could.
What number of trials, same probability of success, and independent events. There we go.
True. We're
Stat 104 dogs over here.
Yeah, we just tested
Big
today.
exam today. Huge. Yep. I think we cooked.
You know, I think you did. I think
we'll have the report cards next pod.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think this is Jonathan Smith coming in and really solidifying himself as an elite coach, because what he did at Oregon State was great, but he did it at Oregon State, so that's kind of going to be dangling over his head. Now he's at a big program, and you're telling me you can go to your rival in year one in an under-recruited team, an under-talented team. You go into their place, which is one of the top places to play, and come away with a victory. They're going to sign a little extra check to him if he can get that done, and I would love to see it. So give me the Spartans as well. And my delusion through this last game on here, the Sunflower Showdown is this weekend. I get Kansas State as a good football team, but did you guys see
I'll just
Kansas
let you pick
last
this one
week?
first. Go ahead. You can pick this one first. I'll just let you ride.
Something about the color purple. No, I'm gonna pick Kansas. I don't care that it says 2-5 next to their record. They look like they're playing football like they should have been at the beginning of the year. So hopefully things just turned around. Hopefully things are good to go. Granted, this is probably just a loss on the record I'm chalking up, but I will be watching it in full blue and red.
Should I just pick Kansas as well to disallow you from coming back if this game actually does go in the favor of the Jayhawks?
It's your call.
No, I'm just kidding. I am going to go with Kansas State here, but I do think this is a close game. For the record,
this is a better game than it would have been.
Game. Yeah, I agree. I think this Kansas team, they needed a bye in the worst way possible after that Arizona State loss, right, where you rattle off 5 straight losses.
Yeah.
They needed a bye in the worst way, and they got it. And then they got a nice opponent at home against Houston, took care of business, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of footing, right?
Yeah.
It's like this season, it's been bad. It hasn't been anywhere close to what people expected, right? This was going to be a dark horse, not even a dark horse, like a hot pick to win the Big 12, and it hasn't been that at all. But I think, the talent's still there, right? There's a reason why we picked them to finish high. The talent has not gone away. They haven't dealt with many injuries, have they? I mean, everybody's
basically
pretty much still intact.
Injuries from their main guys.
Just don't have that boy Jason Bean anymore.
Mm-mm.
Rest in peace. Is he on an NFL team?
He's not dead yet. He was just the first overall pick of the CFL.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah, usually where football careers go to die, unfortunately.
Unless you're Adrian Martinez.
Was he in the CFL?
Yeah, and then he was the MVP, and now he's with the Jets.
I thought he was the XFL.
No, because they combined.
The UFL. Isn't the CFL the Canadian Football League?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It's all the same to me. I couldn't tell you the difference. The BFLs, the B League.
I think the CFL is pretty much irrelevant nowadays. Maybe it's still going on. I don't know. But yeah, the UFL.
He was the first overall pick of whatever one. I can't remember.
Yep. Nebraska, the best thing that has come out of Nebraska over the course of the last, I guess Wandale Robinson's okay. He's a decent NFL player.
Ndamukong Suh was all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I go back like the last decade or so.
The last
Yeah, so it was
decade?
before that. It might be Adrian Martinez, honestly. I mean,
Which is a shame. I never liked that guy.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, Michigan or Kansas State for me here. I'll pick the Wildcats. Closer game though than people would expect.
Definitely.
That'll do it for picks this week.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the 3 for 3, and then we'll hit that factual 5 really quick.
Definitely. Let me get mine pulled up.
Absolutely.
My number 3. Unfortunately, no interesting sports this week. I will say though,
it's not a real
I do
Casey
have an
factor
update on the
3-3.
World Conquer Championships. He is cleared. There
been-
was no cheating involved. They went back and they reviewed all the film and everything, and they believe he won legitimately and that it was just in his pocket as a joke or ploy.
I can finally rest.
Mhm.
I can finally go to sleep. The World Conquer Championship has been living in my head rent-free for the last week, and
I know, dude.
It's been a hassle to live life.
I
But
must bring the
yeah.
people the important news.
Thank you. Peace of mind is upon me, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Great. That's
Um,
the honorable mention for the 3 for 3 today.
yeah. At number 3, Kenny Dillingham's post-game speech. I'll just read it out for you. Our kicking game is atrocious. So if you can kick and you're at Arizona State, email me. We're going to have kicking tryouts on Monday. Yeah, I'm dead serious. That is just something I never thought I would hear, especially after coming off a huge upset the week prior. Granted, their kicking has been bad. They got 2 guys and just neither of them can kick field goals inside of 30 yards, which is an issue if you're in the NFL. In college football. That'd be even more of an issue if they were in the NFL, but it was such an interesting time. I had to throw it on there. He kind of shows him being the young gun of college football coaching.
Yeah, and I'll just say it right now. That's also my number 3.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. And my favorite thing about that is, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that, and he issued that apology, right? Like, that's not something you do to throw your kicker under the bus. But I also can appreciate the authenticity in 2024 college football because we talk about it all the time. Like, we don't get that from coaches anymore. They're all a shell of themselves. Usually guys, when they're young, like Dillingham, and it's their first main job, they'll start out by talking a lot because you're trying to garner the attention of the fan base. You're trying to win people over. You're trying to, get the boosters behind you. Like, that's a big deal. So, like, you start out with that authenticity. You start out very genuine, and then slowly over time, you kind of start to cave in a little bit, and your circle tightens. And I mean, you look at guys like Matt Campbell now, where it's like, Matt just doesn't really say anything in press conferences and it's honestly, it's smart because these guys know that typically the media takes things so out of context.
Yeah.
So it's like, the stuff that they say can always be held against them, even if,
you don't say
what
much.
goes into the media isn't really what they said at all.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I think it's great to see guys like Kenny Dillingham, as the outlier, kind of cutting against the grain, and that was hilarious as well. So that was also my number 3.
Yeah. My number 2, high school football. Westinghouse High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania wins their game 68-0, and you think, oh well, blowouts happen all the time. Well, they did this with only 11 players active for the game. They had 30 people suspended for a fight that broke out previously. Yep, they had 11 players. Now, here's the crazy thing. This was the Pitt City semifinal game, and they only played 10 guys on defense and still held a shutout. And that way,
trotted 10 onto the field?
Defensively, they would just trot 10 onto the field. Only 11 guys were eligible to suit up. They would only trot 10 on, and that way they could rest one guy at each time and kind of cycle it in and out. And they still held the shutout. They were short-manned. Also, 60 of their 68 were scored before halftime.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So they just kind of put the anaconda on in the second half?
Yeah. And I'm
So
sure
cool.
running clock and shortened quarters were in full effect.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. How about that? You said Westinghouse, right?
Westinghouse High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
What would their nickname be? Do we know?
No clue. I've probably heard it. I can't tell by this video. They look just like the Pitt Panthers, though.
All right. Well, go Westinghouse. Big Westinghouse fans on the rundown.
Oh, the Westinghouse Bulldogs, and their logo is just
Go
Gonzaga.
Dogs. Rough. All right, my number 2 here. This is very unoriginal, but I'm going to go back again to the Army Black Knights for a second week in a row. This time, though, I'm going to single out Bryson Daly, the quarterback.
He was good.
This guy's been unbelievable. I could not talk about him because I don't know if he's going to have a stat line like this again this year. Okay, so this is crazy enough for Army standards. 7 of 10 through the air for 147 yards and 1 touchdown. That doesn't happen.
No.
They usually, back in the day, it was like you throw 3
throws.
passes a game. Yeah, 10 throws. He completes 7 of them. 70% completion percentage, 147 bomb, 1 touchdown.
Can't complain.
That's an elite performance. Oh, and then you tack on 31 carries, 171 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the ground.
That's insane.
This guy's ridiculous right now. And he's got a great offensive line up front, too. Good running backs, great offense all around. Jeff Monken right now, and the guy for Navy. We talked about this last week, but they should both be up there for National Coach of the Year. Both these guys should be. But I wanted to talk specifically about Bryson Daly here. He's my number 2. This guy's elite. He's on the Davey O'Brien quarterback award watch list, which he should be at this point. He's having an unreal season.
Yeah. Horvath should be up there, too, for Navy, right?
Okay. Is that their coach?
QB.
Or he probably is. Yeah, I haven't seen. But, yeah.
Yeah. So my number 1, I do have the audio clip for this, luckily, because I personally could not put the ability in my voice. Eric Collins, was on the call for the Maryland USC game, which was just such an interesting game. USC got absolutely beat by Maryland. I had 2 points for this. First off, to end the game on the QB kneel, Maryland's QB kneels the ball, turns around, and throws an alley-oop dunk to his running back who was behind him. And then Eric Collins gives us arguably the best call of the entire season.
I'm sure Eric Collins did it, yeah.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea! Oh, my goodness! Oh, my goodness! That is not a gift.
Oh, no! Disaster!
Abu Sama!
That guy is just
Oh, gosh.
He has the edge over Gus Johnson for me, just because his calls are so iconic and can be quoted so easily, and he brings so much to the game.
He does.
And to the listeners. I heard that and I was immediately laughing.
Some may say he's the poor man's Gus Johnson.
I would
think
say
he's
that.
just Eric Collins, man.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the same persona, but he's even more extreme than Gus sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just
And he does it all the time, week in, week out on NBA games.
It doesn't
He's got
matter.
90
the
of
Charlotte
those.
Hornets. He's the Hornets announcer, right? Typically
Yeah.
their TV guy. And it doesn't matter the situation, doesn't matter the context.
Terry Rozier hitting 2 free throws to tie the game.
It's ridiculous. This guy knows it too.
Yeah.
The McLean pass.
What do you got?
McLean.
It's caught.
That should have been on there for our top 5 sporting calls of all time back in the summer for our.
It was
Factual
close
5.
for
That
me.
was elite. Okay, really good. Eric Collins is great. We love him. We're big broadcasting guys, so that's good. My number 1, we already kind of mentioned it. I want to shout out Kurt Cignetti in the Indiana Hoosiers after they absolutely took Nebraska to the woodshed this weekend. Listen, it wouldn't have mattered who it was against. That's actually a lie.
That's
I think,
a lie.
Being that it's against Nebraska,
Yeah.
it means a lot more. But
It just means
and
more.
for the record, Nebraska fans, I'm more happy that Iowa lost than you guys. Okay.
Yep.
Just so you know.
True.
But just Indiana, dude, they're back. This is a good football team, and I think there were a lot of schedule allegations going into this week. I still think Nebraska's an okay team. That was pretty uninspiring. That defense needs some work. But Indiana, man, they came out there and just, put the foot on the gas pedal off rip, never looked back. This team had an elite game. And then Curtis Rourke, the quarterback, you know his backstory, right?
Yep.
Where he came from?
I do.
Yeah. Member of the Ohio Bobcats football team in 2023. So obviously he's good. This was no surprise. He's
We've seen him firsthand.
He's an elite quarterback. He beat the Iowa State Cyclones, okay? So Nebraska fans,
The
okay,
undefeated Iowa State Cyclones.
We also, yes. And Iowa State has only lost, I think, 4 games. Has it 3 or 4 since then? Whatever the case may be, it hasn't been many. So clearly this Curtis Rourke is a good dude if he's going to beat a team like that. So I wouldn't take too much from this game, Nebraska fans. It's just Curtis Rourke's dog. But, Indiana, they're my number 1 here. Their victory against the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Love it.
All right, Factual 5 here.
Let's do
Shall
it.
we?
Yep.
Bringing it back this week with Iowa State on bye. And this week, the topic is our top 5 coaches on the hot seat right now in college football. It's that time of the year. We already saw the East Carolina head coach get fired.
Yep.
We saw
Utah's
Utah's
OC.
offensive coordinator go. It's that time of the year. The coaching carousel begins now, which means this is a perfect time to rattle through our top 5 coaches on the hot seat. Casey, you go.
I'm going to start with an honorable mention quick. Mac Brown of North Carolina. I think they're just going to ask him to retire is all. But I think
one of those guys you can't fire.
Yeah, his performance and kind of how long he's been there, I think it's about time that he gets told it's time to hang it up. Great. Fantastic for the game. He's done absolute wonders for it. Still being around, still doing what he does is inspiring, but I think, it is time. But at my number 5, and maybe it's just because I don't like him, I put Ryan Day. He has kind of been subpar. They got absolutely hosed by Oregon. They were outcoached. They were outplayed. And this is an Ohio State team that should be the favorite to win the Big Ten going into the season. This is the most talented Ohio State roster we've seen in a long time. And at the end of the day, he's a couple bad losses away from, I think the donors lose confidence in him. And at a time where you can go out and buy any coach, you can go out and buy any player, you don't have to wait anymore. And I feel like they've been waiting around on him to go get things done.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people would agree as well. I've got 3 honorable mentions here, okay?
Okay.
And they all kind of blend together. And listen, it's kind of the same deal. These are all 3 guys that won't get fired because of who they are, their names, and how long they've been around. But it's the 3 longest tenured coaches in college football at their respective locations, with 1 being Kirk Ferentz,
True.
2 being Kyle Whittingham, 3 being Mike Gundy. And I threw it on here because I think it's interesting. And again, these are not guys I think will get fired, but I think there is a chance that eventually
it's just known.
They could be, we'll speed things up here. I think we got some people coming in after us. This is the first time we've about been kicked out, but we may have to speed this up. They may get asked to step down or just retire because they're the 3 longest tenured coaches, and you look at their seasons, and they're all really having bad seasons right now, and I think it's a sign of the times.
Definitely.
So, yeah, those 3. And then my number 5 is Kenny Burns from Kent State.
Yeah.
The current longest losing
worst
streak
coach
in college football, 16 games. It's only his second year, but, man, 16 losses in a row. I think it's time to make the change already, Kent State.
Yeah, you just can't do that. At number 4, I have Billy Napier from Florida. I get it. They've had some decent games, but their wins are against really bad teams, and they still have to go to number 2, number 5, and then they play 8-18 in Florida State. So his seasons might as well be about done.
I like that. My number 4 is going to be Neil Brown. This is a guy where I thought he really resurrected himself from that spot after last year, but these last 2 games I think have been telling for me. You get 2 primetime matchups at home against 2 good teams, and West Virginia was flat in both.
My number 3 is Hugh Freeze of Auburn. I think they just have lost confidence. He has lost the locker room, and I think he is about as good as done after a 4-game slide.
I like that one. My number 3 is your number have you said him yet? Billy Napier?
Yep, he's my 4.
4, yeah. He's my number 3. I would just reiterate what you said. I mean, nice win this weekend against Kentucky, but they haven't beaten anybody yet this year, and their schedule from this point forward is daunting.
Yeah. My number 2, he had to be here. It's Dave Aranda. That Texas Tech win won't save you long, Dave. It is almost your time. Just has not looked good this season, and I get he's played some better teams, but it's time, Dave. It's time to be gone.
Dave Aranda is also my number 2. Again, I'll just echo what you said. This guy he's really hanging by a thread right now, and life raft.
Yeah. And then my number 1, I'm going to go Sam Pittman of Arkansas. I just don't think that he's got everyone's kind of – it's a SEC where now you can buy wins, you can go buy coaches, and I don't think Sam Pittman is the right guy for the team, and I think it's starting to show.
Yeah, that's actually a guy I didn't have on my list, but now that I just completely forgot about him. But now that you mention it, I probably would if I were to go back, maybe over Kenny Burns of Kent State. But my number one is going to be Hugh Freeze of Auburn. They've been so uninspiring this year. 2-4 record right now.
Yeah.
The future does not look bright down there in Auburn. So that will do it for today. Had to kind of speed run that last segment as we do have people coming in after us to record their own podcast. We do kind of share the studio now, but thank you all for tuning in today. May or may not catch you next week. If not, we'll see you the following week. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening on the YouTube now, like we talked about last week. And then follow us on the Twitter at @the rundown_pod. For Casey Schiesler, I'm Caleb Polking saying so long until next week.